So thank you for downloading the MindPractice Startup and Profit Calculator. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through this with you. Now, I'm not going to go hardcore into depth, otherwise we'll be here forever. This video will be roughly about 10 minutes or so. I highly recommend you watch the whole thing. Otherwise, what's going to happen is that if you're not familiar with Excel spreadsheets, then you're going to start wondering how things are working, and then it'll be a little bit frustrating. So, just spend a few minutes and I promise you it'll be worth it. Now, with this spreadsheet, there are a few assumptions here, okay? I build all of my practices based around the assumption of 7 figures, so minimum $1 million per year. And that is with 3 providers and 1 office staff. So now you might be a solo provider and you might be only doing telemedicine. So a lot of these prices in here or the amounts in here are not going to apply to you. So you adjust this spreadsheet so it works for you and your situation and what you're trying to accomplish. The other thing I want to note with the spreadsheet is that it is not an exact tool, right? So this is just kind of give you an idea of the startup costs, kind of give you an idea for operations and what type of profit margins that you can expect with a practice based on your specific scenario. So with that being said, I'm going to get into it, and I'm just like I said, I'm not going to get into detail of this. That could be done later. If you want to set up a call, we can work through these numbers with you. But otherwise, so in the tab number 1, the startup cost. Now, these are all the major categories of opening up an office, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scroll down to the bottom over here in this summary section. In this summary section, we have office setup, patient waiting area, psychiatrist office, NP office, therapist office, receptionist, break room, legal licensing, insurance, technology, marketing, branding, all right? So on average, if we were going to pop up a office and rent one out and have 3 offices for 3 providers, possibly usually about 4 offices or so, it'd be about $50,000. Now, you can do this way, way cheaper, okay? Especially if you're subletting, you're just starting out, I would highly recommend don't incur all these costs. But if you are creating a practice with multiple providers, this is probably going to be a good estimate of what it's going to be, right? So these numbers in the summary here are pulled in from the subtotals of each section, right? So for instance, in the social media, if I was to put this down to 0, you can see the subtotal charges or updates to 1,000, and then marketing brand in here will be 1,000, okay? Just also FYI, and I'll talk about this, is these numbers, you can save significant amount of costs with startup if you do some things yourselves, but you just have to weigh out, is the time worth investing into these things or just paying someone to do it going to be a lot easier or better? Don't do it because you're lazy. Do it because it makes sense, right? So, just going up into here, and if you're not familiar with spreadsheets, right, whether you're using Google Doc or Excel, you're just going to click on the number here so you can select the entire row. And then if you're going to go ahead and right click and click on insert, it will add a new row right above that line, okay? And then in here, so let's just say, for instance, that we're going to say, I don't know, carpet cleaning, and you're going to pay $100. You can add that in there. It updates the subtotal, right? So I'm just going to take this out so that doesn't stay in there. Now, if you are going to be a solo office and you're subletting, probably a lot of these numbers are going to change. I live in Texas and Florida, and so I base all of the costs around the averages within those states. Now, if you're in the city, might be a totally different number, right? So, you might pay $3,000 just for a sublet. I have no idea. But again, this is what we use, and I'm giving you real numbers or real estimates of what we do in Texas and Florida. So with this being said, there's a lot of things in here that are going to be very state specific. So when you get into this business registration, malpractice, general liability, even payroll taxes, all those things, those are all very state dependent. So you need to check with your state to see what the cost is, right? So I can't, guesstimate every single state, but fill in these numbers based on your research. Malpractice, obviously, I highly recommend. Shop around, figure out what your minimum requirement is within your state to be insured. And then also, for EHR, there's a lot of EHRs that don't charge a setup fee. So it just kind of depends. And then also too is that MindPractice, which obviously you got this calculator from, that's a practice management software. So this way it can help your practice run more on autopilot, right? So EHRs kind of like have its limitations or don't do certain things very well. IT setup, again, you can save a lot of money and just wipe this out if you do and learn everything yourself. There's a lot of great resources. YouTube is probably one of the best resources on there. Same thing with logo branding design. You can go to Looka, you can go to Canva, you can create your own logo on there. You don't have to pay someone. This is under the assumption that you're going to go to Fiverr and pay someone to go through the logo design process with you. And same thing with social media. You can save this, right? So keep in mind that there's a lot of savings in here. I'm just assuming that the person who wants this is or setting up this practice doesn't want to deal with any of this and just wants to pay someone. So that's going to be the startup cost, number one. Number two, revenue calculator, okay? Super important that you don't modify certain parts of the sheet. The ones I'm going to tell you to modify are the ones that you're going to play with. So a new patient appointment, follow-up appointment, this is how much time it is. So we always average about 1 hour for a new patient, and the follow-up is 0.5 hours or half an hour, 30 minutes, right? Therapy is 1 hour. So configure the time that you're going to have the appointments in here. And then what you're going to do is down over here, do not modify the hours or the total patients. Only modify the new patient and the follow-up patients. And then in here, because there's formulas that are happening in here where we take these times or these quantities, multiply by the time, and that's how we figure it out. The other assumption here is no shows and late cancellations, right? So this is six clinical hours. And let's just say that you have 8 hours total, right? But you're never going to hit 100%. So I'm just assuming about 20% no-show and cancellation rate. And that's where the 6 hours comes in. But if you're going to be only doing 6 clinical hours per day, which is totally fine, I highly suggest doing that. You might switch this down to 8. Then you have 5 clinical hours, right? So you just have to find the numbers that's going to be realistic for you and work for you. And if you're the solo provider, just put zeros across the board on all of these. And I'm not going to do it right now, but that way you can just calculate the total for yourself. Now, getting down over here, the monthly, set your rates according to what you think you're going to charge. If you have a sliding scale, just charge the average. And when I say the average, the median, actually. So whatever you're going to have the most appointments of. Obviously, let's say you're charging one for $1,000, for a new, and then most of them you're charging 200 out of 9 times out of 10, it's obviously going to be probably around 250, right? So find the median or the average, whatever number like you like to think about it. Go in and plug it in here. This is what we like to do for self-pay. And then when you get down over here, this is going to be the total amount of new patients you need to bring in. This is going to be the total amount of follow-ups and the total amount of appointments. So like I said, we base this model on a 7-figure blueprint. This is how we get to 1.1 million per year with 3 providers and 1 office staff, right? So this is going to be gross top line revenue. Getting into tab number 3, profit and loss, all right? Something important. These numbers here are being pulled from the revenue calculator here, okay? Now, feel free to change these numbers if you want to only manually plug them in, but they won't reference the number in there before. The other thing too is that I just have this number consistent across the board. Now, if you're starting a practice, there's going to be a ramp up period. Maybe in the first 6 months, you want to ramp it up, and then you want to bring in a nurse practitioner or a therapist within month 3 or month 6. Let these numbers play the scenario on how you plan to scale your practice and that you want how to grow your practice. I'm just taking averages across the board. Now, in here, the subcontractors, we have all of our providers be 1099s. And then from here, I just set it 60%. I just wrote this in here so this way I can see it. But the actual number is going to be calculated in here. So 0.6, which is 60%, times their amount that they're receiving pay, which is wound back to the revenue calculator. But you can plug these numbers in as you see fit. So if you've never used a spreadsheet before and you want to take the numbers across the board, and let's say you want to pay this person 50% revenue, I'm going to go click here. And I'm going to take this and I'm going to drag it all the way across to December over there. Now just updated everything. So, the number changed and then the total changed over here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to undo that because I don't want to keep that in there. Now, I'm not going to go again through every single expense over here, but you need to figure out line by line, what is it going to cost for you? Are you going to pay your malpractice monthly? Are you going to pay it quarterly? You're going to have renter's insurance. Are you going to pay it annually? And try to drop in the numbers where you really see them taking place and how much they're going to be. And if you're not sure, just take a monthly average. But if there are a lot of things that are going to be like paid annually, make sure you know which time of the year that they're going to be charged, and then just go ahead and put it in here, right? So computer software, this is where a lot of, obviously we live in a digital age, so we're going to be using a lot of software. Do consider all the software you're going to use, and you can put them in here, right? Now, in here, the medical director, this is the owner of the company. This is where you're going to put your payroll. This P&L over here is set up as an S Corp. You could be an LLC, but filing as an S Corp. So what we like about filing as an S Corp is that we can use the company as a pass-through. And so the owner will get an actual W-2, and then that way they're only being taxed on their salary. You have to pay yourself a decent wage, so you can't pay yourself, $20,000 a year. The IRS won't like that. They're going to make you pay even more. So with that being said, the total expense is going to be here. The net income is going to be over here. And, this is a scenario that's kind of in a bubble. They have a thing called budgets versus actuals, which, when you get into running a practice, if you're going to do your books yourself or you're going to hire someone, 100% you're going to need a budget. If you don't, you're going to get a lot of surprises. And even if you do have a budget, you might have some surprises, but significantly less. And you just want to figure out, how much do you want to pay yourself? How much do you need to make? What type of profit? A lot of the profit is going to be put into cash reserves. It's going to be put into investments to grow, to expand. So, if your practice doesn't have profits, you're just going to be struggling. Right? So you want to understand what profit you need to make, what type of growth, what type of cash reserves you want to have. And then that way you can work your numbers there and reverse engineer it. Right? So if you have any questions beyond this, you can just click on this read me first, and then go ahead and click on here, schedule a call, a free 15-minute call. And then if you have any questions about this or anything else about starting up a practice, I'll do my best to answer to answer your questions for you. Otherwise, have fun with this calculator. And like I said, if you do get stuck, go ahead and reach out to me and I'll do my best to help you. Thank you and have a nice day.